Good night, Malaysian 370. These were the last words ever heard from Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah aboard Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, transmitted at 1:19 a.m. on March 8, 2014, as his Boeing 777 disappeared into the darkness over the South China Sea. But what followed those routine words would become aviation's greatest mystery, a puzzle that has haunted investigators, families, and the world for over a decade. What really happened during those terrifying final hours as 239 souls aboard one of the world's most advanced aircraft vanished without a trace into the vast emptiness of the Indian Ocean? This is the story of how a routine red-eye flight from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing became a nightmare that defied explanation, challenged everything we thought we knew about modern aviation, and left families around the world desperately searching for answers that may never come. March 8, 2014 began as just another busy night at Kuala Lumpur International Airport, with the humid tropical air thick with the sounds of jet engines, ground equipment, and the constant flow of passengers moving through one of Southeast Asia's busiest aviation hubs. Flight 370 sat at Gate C1, a magnificent Boeing 777-200ER that represented the pinnacle of aviation technology, equipped with multiple backup systems, satellite communications, and safety features designed to prevent exactly the kind of disappearance that was about to unfold. Among the 227 passengers boarding the aircraft were families heading home to China after vacations in Malaysia, business travelers with important meetings scheduled in Beijing, elderly couples visiting relatives they hadn't seen in months, young adults embarking on new adventures, and children excited about the overnight flight that would have them in China by morning. There were artists carrying precious works to exhibitions, students returning to universities, engineers traveling for technical conferences, and tourists whose cameras held memories of Malaysian beaches and cultural sites they would never have the chance to share. The passenger manifest read like a cross-section of international travel. 153 Chinese nationals, including a group of prominent artists and calligraphers, 38 Malaysians returning home or traveling for business, 12 Indonesians, 6 Australians, 4 Americans, including 2 young children traveling with their parents, 3 French passengers, 2 Canadians, 2 Ukrainians, 2 New Zealanders, and citizens from Iran, Russia, Netherlands, and Austria. Each person carried not just luggage, but dreams, plans, and connections to people who would spend the coming years desperately hoping for news that would never arrive. Among them were 2 passengers traveling on stolen Austrian and Italian passports, a detail that would initially fuel terrorism theories before investigations revealed they were Iranian asylum seekers with no connection to any terror organization. Simply desperate people seeking better lives who had the terrible misfortune to board a flight that would make headlines for all the wrong reasons. Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, a highly respected 53-year-old pilot with over 18,000 flight hours and an impeccable safety record, had been flying for Malaysia Airlines since 1981 and was considered one of their most experienced and trusted captains. Known for his professionalism, technical expertise, and calm demeanor under pressure, Zahari was also a flight simulator enthusiast who had built a sophisticated home simulator where he practiced emergency procedures and explored challenging flight scenarios. His passion for aviation extended beyond his professional duties, and he was active on social media sharing his love of flying with enthusiasts around the world. Beside him sat First Officer Farik Abdul Hamid, a promising 27-year-old pilot who was transitioning to the Boeing 777 after flying smaller aircraft, eager to learn from the experienced captain and build his career with one of Asia's leading airlines. This was actually Farik's final training flight on the 777 before being certified to fly as a fully qualified first officer, making the tragedy even more poignant as his aviation dreams would be cut short just as they were beginning to flourish. The cabin crew consisted of 10 experienced flight attendants, led by Chief Steward Andrew Nari, professionals who had collectively served millions of passengers and handled every conceivable situation from medical emergencies to unruly passengers, from severe turbulence to minor technical problems. They welcomed passengers with the warm Malaysian hospitality that had made the airline famous throughout Asia, helping families with children get settled, assisting elderly passengers with carry-on luggage, and ensuring everyone was comfortable for the 6-hour overnight flight to Beijing. The crew conducted their safety demonstration with practiced efficiency, explaining emergency procedures and evacuation routes, while passengers followed the familiar ritual of half listening while organizing personal items and settling in for the journey ahead. As midnight approached on that humid March evening, final preparations were completed with the methodical precision that characterizes modern commercial aviation. Ground crews performed final checks of the Boeing 777's twin Rolls-Royce engines, verified cargo loading, and ensured all systems were ready for the long flight across the South China Sea and over Vietnam to China. The aircraft carried enough fuel for the 6-hour flight plus required reserves, had been thoroughly inspected by certified technicians, and showed no signs of mechanical problems or safety concerns. Air traffic controllers cleared Flight 370 for pushback from the gate, and at exactly 12:41 a.m. local time, the massive Boeing 777 began its taxi to runway 32R for what everyone expected would be a routine overnight flight. The takeoff at 12:41 a.m. was flawless, with the powerful Rolls-Royce Trent engines lifting the 777 smoothly into the tropical night sky, as Captain Zahari and First Officer Farik followed standard departure procedures, climbing through multiple altitude levels while air traffic control guided them along the established airway toward Vietnamese airspace. For the first 38 minutes of flight, everything proceeded exactly according to plan. The aircraft climbed to its cruising altitude of 35,000 feet. Passengers settled in for the overnight journey. Flight attendants began preparing for meal service, and the cockpit crew maintained regular communication with air traffic control as they approached the boundary between Malaysian and Vietnamese airspace over the South China Sea. At 1:01 a.m., as Flight 370 flew steadily northeast toward Vietnam, the Aircraft Communications Addressing and Reporting System, known as ACARS, transmitted its final automated message to Malaysia Airlines Operations Center. This system, designed to provide continuous updates on aircraft position, fuel status, engine performance, and other critical flight parameters, had been sending routine data throughout the flight, with no indication of any problems or anomalies. The message showed all systems operating normally, fuel consumption on schedule, and the aircraft maintaining its planned route and altitude exactly as programmed into the flight management computer. But at 1:07 a.m., something began to go catastrophically wrong. The ACARS system, which should have transmitted its next scheduled message, fell silent. This sophisticated communication system, designed with multiple redundancies and backup power sources, simply stopped reporting, leaving Malaysia Airlines Operations Center without the continuous stream of data they used to monitor their aircraft worldwide. At the time, this silence went unnoticed by dispatchers who were busy tracking dozens of other flights across the airline's extensive network, assuming the gap in communications was a temporary technical glitch that would resolve itself, as such minor interruptions occasionally occurred, due to atmospheric conditions or minor equipment problems. 12 minutes later, at 1:19 a.m., came Captain Zahari's final radio transmission to Malaysian Air Traffic Control. "Good night, Malaysian 370. His voice was calm, professional, and gave no indication of stress, emergency, or any problems aboard the aircraft. This routine handoff communication, spoken as Flight 370 approached the boundary between Malaysian and Vietnamese airspace, would become one of the most analyzed phrases in aviation history, as investigators desperately searched for any hint of what was about to unfold. The transmission followed standard phraseology and was delivered in the same calm tone Zahari had used throughout his career, providing no clue that within minutes, Flight 370 would disappear from radar screens and begin a journey into one of aviation's greatest mysteries. At 1:21 a.m., just 2 minutes after that final radio call, Flight 370's transponder stopped transmitting. The transponder, a critical safety device that broadcasts the aircraft's identity, altitude, speed, and position to air traffic control radar systems worldwide, simply went silent, effectively making the Boeing 777 invisible to civilian radar tracking. This was not a gradual failure or technical malfunction, but an immediate and complete cessation of the transponder signal, suggesting either catastrophic electrical failure or deliberate deactivation. Without transponder data, air traffic controllers could no longer track Flight 370's precise location, altitude, or identity, reducing the sophisticated Boeing 777 to nothing more than an anonymous radar blip among the countless aircraft crossing Southeast Asian skies each night. What happened next would puzzle investigators for years and spawn countless theories about the fate of Flight 370. Instead of continuing northeast toward Beijing as planned, the aircraft made a sharp left turn, deviating from its filed flight plan and heading northwest back across the Malay Peninsula. This dramatic course change, captured by Malaysian military radar but not immediately recognized as significant, took Flight 370 hundreds of miles off its intended route, flying over Malaysian territory before turning south toward the vast emptiness of the Indian Ocean. Military radar operators, monitoring screens filled with aircraft returning from normal flights, initially dismissed the unidentified radar return as routine traffic, not realizing they were watching one of commercial aviation's most tragic mysteries unfold in real time. The radar track showed Flight 370 climbing and descending erratically, changing course multiple times, and behaving in ways completely inconsistent with normal flight operations or standard emergency procedures. These erratic movements, combined with the loss of communication systems, painted a picture of an aircraft in serious distress, but the true nature of that distress would remain unknown for years. For the next 6 hours, Flight 370 flew south across the Indian Ocean, tracked only by satellites that recorded automated handshake signals from the aircraft's communication equipment. These satellite pings, occurring roughly every hour, provided investigators with crucial evidence that the aircraft had remained airborne for much longer than anyone initially realized, continuing to fly south into one of the most remote regions of Earth's oceans. The final satellite ping was detected at 8:19 a.m., more than 7 hours after takeoff, indicating that Flight 370 had flown for thousands of miles beyond its intended destination before finally disappearing forever into the depths of the southern Indian Ocean. Take a moment to imagine the absolute terror and confusion that passengers and crew must have experienced during those final hours. Were they conscious and aware that their aircraft was flying in the wrong direction, away from their destination and toward the empty ocean? Did they realize something was catastrophically wrong when morning sunlight revealed endless water instead of the Chinese countryside they should have been seeing as they approached Beijing? Share your thoughts in the comments about what you think those final hours might have been like for the 239 people aboard Flight 370, and how you would want your loved ones to be remembered if they had been on that flight. The search for Flight 370 became the most expensive and extensive in aviation history, involving dozens of countries, sophisticated deep-sea exploration technology, and years of coordinated international effort. Ships and aircraft from Malaysia, Australia, China, the United States, and many other nations scoured millions of square miles of ocean, using everything from satellite imagery to autonomous underwater vehicles in desperate attempts to locate the missing Boeing 777. The search area, larger than the continental United States, encompassed some of the deepest and most remote waters on Earth, where crushing pressure and complete darkness made recovery efforts extraordinarily challenging, even if wreckage could be located. Despite finding scattered pieces of debris that washed ashore on beaches across the western Indian Ocean, from Mauritius to Madagascar to the coast of Africa, the main wreckage of Flight 370 and the answers it might provide about what happened during those final terrifying hours remain lost beneath miles of water. Each piece of debris told part of the story, but raised more questions than it answered, showing evidence of high-speed impact with the ocean surface, but providing no clues about what caused the aircraft to deviate from its course or why communication systems failed so completely. The investigation into Flight 370's disappearance revealed troubling gaps in aviation security and tracking systems that allowed a large commercial aircraft to simply vanish in an age of global connectivity and constant surveillance. The fact that investigators still cannot definitively explain what happened to Flight 370 has fundamentally changed how the aviation industry approaches aircraft tracking, requiring new technologies and procedures to ensure that no aircraft can ever again disappear so completely from human knowledge. Theories about Flight 370's fate range from mechanical failure to pilot action to cyber attack, but none fully explain all the available evidence or provide closure to families who lost loved ones aboard the missing aircraft. The possibility that someone deliberately flew the aircraft into the remote ocean remains one of the most disturbing scenarios considered by investigators, suggesting that 239 innocent people may have been victims of an act so heinous that it defies comprehension. The families of Flight 370's passengers and crew have endured over a decade of uncertainty, grief, and unanswered questions that have made healing nearly impossible. Unlike other aviation disasters where crash sites are located and investigations provide some measure of closure, the families of Flight 370 victims have been left in an agonizing limbo, never knowing exactly what happened to their loved ones or being able to properly lay them to rest. Their strength and determination in demanding continued search efforts and investigation have kept the story of Flight 370 in public consciousness and driven improvements in aviation safety and tracking systems. Memorial services held around the world have honored the memory of all 239 people aboard Flight 370, recognizing them not as statistics or case study subjects, but as individuals with names, faces, dreams, and people who loved them. The Chinese artists who were traveling to Beijing for exhibitions, the Malaysian families heading home, the Australian couples on vacation, the American children traveling with parents, and all the others aboard Flight 370 deserve to be remembered for the lives they lived, not just the mystery surrounding their deaths. If this story has affected you as deeply as it should, please take a moment to honor the memory of those lost by subscribing to our channel and sharing this video with others who need to understand how aviation tragedies like Flight 370 drive improvements in safety and tracking systems that protect future travelers. Every subscription, every share, every comment helps ensure that the 239 people aboard Flight 370 are not forgotten and that their disappearance continues motivating efforts to prevent similar mysteries from occurring. Like this video if it has given you a deeper appreciation for the complex challenges facing aviation safety and the dedicated professionals working to ensure that no aircraft ever again vanishes without trace. The mystery of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 remains one of aviation's most haunting, unsolved cases. A reminder that even in our interconnected, constantly monitored world, aircraft and the people aboard them can still disappear into the vast emptiness of Earth's oceans. The 239 souls who boarded Flight 370 that night in Kuala Lumpur were ordinary people embarking on what should have been a routine journey, carrying with them the hopes, dreams, and love of families who continue waiting for answers that may never come. Their story serves as a stark reminder of how precious and fragile life is, how quickly ordinary moments can become extraordinary tragedies, and how the mystery of their final hours continues to challenge everything we thought we knew about modern aviation safety. Until the main wreckage of Flight 370 is found and its secrets revealed, the families of those 239 people will continue their painful vigil, and the aviation world will continue working to ensure that no future flight ever vanishes so completely into the darkness, leaving behind only questions, grief, and the enduring hope that someday, somehow, the truth will finally emerge from the depths of the Indian Ocean.